Hey folks, this is Jason Lewis, the producer of the From the Shadows podcast. I just want to remind you about our website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com. We have a Facebook page. We would appreciate it if you like and follow. Also, join our discussion group on Facebook called After the Shadows. We have a Twitter feed. Please follow us on Twitter. It can be found with @podcast_from. Follow us on Instagram @From the Shadows Podcast. We have a YouTube channel. Go to the search bar at YouTube and put From the Shadows Podcast, and please subscribe to that channel. We are also on the Odyssey Radio Network, and we can be found there at odyssey1.com. We're still on the traditional podcatchers that everybody loves to listen to us on. We get a lot of feedback, so please rate the podcast and communicate with whether you're on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or Google Podcasts. We're there, and we appreciate it when you leave comments for us. We also have a Patreon page. It can be found at www.patreon.com/FromTheShadows. You can receive books, stickers, coffee mugs, and special content just for our Patreon subscribers. Check it out for yourself and see what packages that we have to offer. Well, that's all I have for you right now, folks, and thanks for being a part of the From the Shadows podcast family. So with that being said, let's get this episode started.
So Howl, I tell you that I tell you from time to time, I tell you what some of the comments we get from our fans, because that's kind of the cool thing about the podcast, and even though the paranormal podcast and this Midweek Howl seem to be different animals, we do have a lot of people that are fans of just the Midweek Howl and could care less about paranormal stuff, and vice versa.
Okay. Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, the fans of the Midweek Howl are diehard. I mean, they are this serious business, man. Serious business. And I'm gonna read you now. I don't know how personal to take this. I don't know if the guy knows that we have good sense of humors and can
Certainly
take
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, can take a joke, and
Right.
I mean, so we have this one, and I'll just go ahead and call him a super fan. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And I did a little research on him, and he seems to be from what our talk, from Montana is
Montana.
where I think he's from.
Super fan.
Okay. Montana super fan.
Montana super fan.
His name's Patrick. I won't even give out his last name. I don't want anybody, if they don't like what he's saying, I don't want him to go beat him down. But his first name's Patrick. Okay. So imagine my chagrin after, our loyal fans will remember the story I told about taking a trip to the hospital. And who knew it might have been life or death until we got there. But Patrick says, "You tell a story like your wife drives. I came on here to listen to the Howler, not some boring trip to the ER from you. What a disappointment. I'm glad you're feeling better, though." Now, how do I take, I mean, is he really glad that I'm feeling better? It seems to me like he thinks maybe the show would be better off without me. I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't take it. First of all, he's right.
Oh, he's right. Okay.
To give the fans behind the scenes, okay.
Mm-hmm.
In some circles, you are a noted songwriter, correct?
In some circles, yes.
And when I asked you one day, I had a guitar question, and you told me that what? You don't play guitar.
I don't play guitar. That's right.
You don't play guitar, right? Which I found odd. But since I have found out, like most writers, that's why they have writer rooms, and most writers maybe can understand the story, but maybe can't sing the song or tell the story, correct?
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Right.
fair.
You know
And
what
the
I mean? So I
people,
wouldn't
the
take it
people that can,
personal.
yeah, the people that can do it are superstars. People that can do all that are superstars.
I don't
You
know
know.
about superstars, but certainly so I know what he's feeling, because now in the other half of it is you're choosing your words, knowing your old lady was going to listen to it, so you got to worry about what you say, right? Because
Well, I'm a stickler for telling the story as factual as possible. Okay. And
then you don't belong in the entertainment world.
that's right. Maybe I don't.
That's
Maybe
why
I
you
don't.
struggled.
But I understand. You have a certain flair, a certain way with words, certain humor. That's not me. I got where we have different styles, and I know very few people probably tune in to actually hear me, but the way the show works is we go back and forth. I kind of try to set you up for some stuff, prompt you for some stuff, and I think that makes the stories even better because I I think my talent is I
you're
can get
the
you rolling. I'm the
uh-huh.
straight man. I can get you rolling. You know.
Straight man. I was going to say you're Donnie and I'm Marie, but or vice versa, right? Hey, I'm Tina and you're Ike. Don't hit me again. You know. Um,
Speak, Speaking of which, I just started watching the Aretha Franklin movie,
was
and
it good?
it's Christy and I are about 45 minutes to an hour into it, and it's pretty good. It's pretty
It's a
good.
movie or a series?
It's a movie. It just came out. It's
How do
actually
you
in the
stop a movie mid hour
it's
into it?
okay. It's in the theaters where we bought it on demand, and when you buy it on demand, we can
I
pause and
understand
stuff.
that, but if it's worth a hoot, you wouldn't stop midstream.
Listen, it wasn't my idea to stop at midstream. It wasn't my idea to start it when we knew we had some place to be. Are you following? Are you
I
picking up what
guess
I'm
I
putting
don't.
down?
I don't know. No, I don't. That's why you had a meandering way to the hospital, because you're not used to closing the circles. There's some circles that need to be closed. A good movie needs to be closed. A trip to the hospital needs to be taken. You know.
Yes, I
But now
got you.
you're. I don't want to say her name, so I'm just going to call her old lady. Your old lady listened to it, and she didn't get upset too bad.
Um,
She didn't kill you or
she,
beat you up.
I don't even know. Oh, she did listen to it because I think my stepdaughter played it for her in the car, and she's great. She's a good sport about it. Okay, and in fact she doesn't listen to much we do. I mean, she listens to the clips that
Right.
I put on social media and laughs at every clip that we put up for the Midweek Howl and rolls
Now,
her
you think
eyes at
she's
every.
laughing because the clips are funny, or that you're struggling like this?
No, 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 because Jason doesn't do clips of me. He puts up clips of you. He knows who the talent is.
Oh.
Just like Patrick in Montana.
Hey, I have a special place in my heart for Montana people. I was there twice last year, I think. I know I was there once for sure, maybe twice.
why I think the next time you go through Montana, Patrick's going to welcome you with open
Now
arms.
there's varying degrees. Now you didn't give me any background. There's varying degrees of Montana, right? So if you're in Billings or Missoula, you experience one sort of Montana. If you're in Lame Deer, you're in a whole different Montana, you know, or some of these places. So
Well,
it's almost like its own country. I think Montana's more of a country than Texas is in some ways.
I will give you a little more on Patrick.
I don't need to know,
Well,
because this is what's going to happen. Hey,
he
no, this
did
is what's going to
comment on
happen.
another episode that you
Oh,
might.
maybe on the, because this is what's going to happen. If he's truly in Montana and if he's in a good place, I'll hate him because I'm jealous. Okay, and if he's in a bad place, it's still going to be better. I'm still going to hate him. You know what I mean? Because there's no really bad places in Montana. So I don't want to know. And my brother. Anyway, I've got some Montana ties that I have the ability to go to Montana whenever I want, and I would I'd hate to have a fan that I needed to look up when I was out there.
Well, we'll see. I'll monitor Patrick's comments, and
But
we'll
but I
see if
did give him the designation because I like the fact that he picked on you.
Yeah,
That
of
I was
course.
the one that gave him I anointed him super fan.
Super fan.
And we're going to send him some merch whenever our merch gets out. We're having some design issues and some.
You know what?
Maybe we should send him the goat patch.
The goat. I think maybe Patrick, when you hear this episode, send me a message through Facebook or whatever, and we'll get you some merch out to you.
Give him the goat patch that I don't like.
I'll give him
I know.
I'll give him the goat patch. Maybe I'll give him. I think Patrick's probably a dude that likes a good coffee, good strong coffee. We got some sweet coffee mugs. I think I'll send him a coffee mug and a goat patch.
There you go. See.
There you go. There you go. But yeah. So I didn't. So yes, I didn't. I made it through. Like I said, I'm not sure how sincere Patrick was with his. I'm glad you're feeling better though. But I did make it through.
Well, perception is reality. So whatever you perceived is what he meant. But you've had some bad news this week. You got a task going on tomorrow, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I'm leaving work early at the post office, and a really good friend of mine, his sister passed away, and she's only in her mid-50s, but she's had some health problems, and he asked me and the judge and a couple other fellas that we all went to school, played basketball together. We're going to be pallbearers at her funeral. And so while I don't mind missing work on a Monday at the post office, this is not, that's definitely not the reason why you want to do it.
Sure.
And she was a sweet, sweet woman. But like I said, she had some health issues. So hopefully she's, she's doing good now.
Better place. Go ahead. I know
better
you're
place.
choosing your words. You want to say better place.
She's in a better place. I just hope she's pain free. And we talked to some people on the other part of the podcast who have some supposed insight on the afterlife.
Yeah, some clairvoyance. Remember, we talked to a clairvoyant.
Yeah, and it seems to me that seems like a pretty good. If you got to go, it seems like we have something much better waiting for us. So. I don't know what's better than this, though. I don't know what's better than us doing the Midweek Howl, but whatever,
I don't either. I don't, hey, I'm torn. I got mixed emotions about funerals and different things. When you grow up, I was trying to tell my kids this the other day because of obviously traffic safety and seat belts and airbags and all this other stuff, that people just don't get killed like they used to, right? Especially like when I was in high school, like I'm sure you were, because you're my generation, you knew somebody older than you or around your age that got killed in a car wreck, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely.
You just did. And I remember my big brother had 3 guys in his class got killed in one night. In one crash. And there was a boy in my class. It was the summer we graduated. He got killed. So, when you start going to funerals and, where I grew up, a real close knit German Catholic communities, you were just going to funerals and weddings like your whole life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like your whole life.
Yep.
And my kids have been to like 1 or 2 funerals, and I don't think they've ever been to a real wedding, So, my funeral, what's the word I'm looking for? My funeral skin has changed over the years to, as you just said, maybe they're in a better place. You know what I mean? Maybe they're in a better place.
Yeah.
One of the few complaints I ever got as a cop, it was from a funeral procession.
How do you get a complaint as a cop about a funeral procession? You pulled a guy over with one headlight.
No,
Okay.
First of all, I know I've told you one of my first stories was the dead. I pulled a dead dude over one night. I think I told you that story, right?
Pulled the dead guy over?
I pulled a dead dude over one night.
No.
So this is going way back. This is going way back. And I was a young deputy sheriff, and I really thought that I don't even know how much how I think I've told the story of how I got to be a deputy sheriff, or I went to I went to the cop school that all the college kids go to, and I kind of knew some people that knew some people that knew the sheriff, so there was an opening in the jail, and I got it, and the only reason why the sheriff promoted me out of the jail is to not have to deal with my crazy uncle who's on a city council in one of the little towns, right?
Yeah.
But all that's to say is I went from working in a controlled environment in a jail to here's the car keys, there's the cop car, go out and patrol this town, right? Now I'm a deputy sheriff, so I can patrol theoretically the whole county, the city, getting out to this little sleepy bedroom community. Okay. The problem is I'd never really done a car stop before. I never really, you do some in a parking lot at school and going to this cop school or whatever, but it's not like you really think that any car could be the one, right? Any car could be the one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I proceeded to go out to my hometown and only stop people I knew, right? Because I knew they weren't going to shoot me. My buddy's mom and dad, and I didn't write any tickets because they didn't give me a ticket book because the sheriff didn't want you to write tickets because they were voters. But if you stopped them, two things happen. The people that wanted something done would say they're out here stopping cars, right?
Yeah.
And then you let them go. The people you stopped, you actually let go, and then they think you're okay. So you never make any voters mad, right?
Yeah.
So I was working one night, and I happened to jump out on the 4-lane. And as I got older, and later I became a state trooper, and I made fun of young cops because they want to be troopers, so they sit out on the big highway, the interstate or whatever, which is well within their purview, right? But as I progressed, the old guys I worked with said, "Dude, they can't even catch who's breaking into cars in what little town, but they want to come out here and play troopers." That makes sense. So I checked a car going fast one night. I don't remember because in my career the highways went from 55 back to 70. So I don't remember how fast this guy was going, but I cut down through the grass because that's what all the cool people did, right? Remember when cops used to cut the median before they put wires? Like here in Missouri, there's wires everywhere, so you don't really cut through the grass anymore. But I cut down through the grass and I pulled this minivan over for going however fast he was, and I walked up there and I jokingly said to the guy, when I got up here, you know where I stopped you, but I'm speeding. Yep. You got anything in here that you're not supposed to have? And he said, like what? And I said, well, what do you think what? And that was, you try to get these people in a trick bag, right? So, I said, well, what are you worried about, or what do you think I might be worried about? And he goes, well, I got a body in here. And I said, huh? He said, yeah, well, I got a dead dude here, but it's legit. I said, well, why is he dead? Well, I don't know. I think old age. I don't know. I'm bringing the funeral home. I said, where's your hearse? And he goes, oh, dude, this is modern times. We haul them in minivans. Hearses are expensive. They don't want to put the miles on them. So they buy us minivans and take the seats out. And sure enough, I shone my flashlight in the back, and there's a casket and no seats.
Oh my God! No identification on the vehicle saying that it's from.
Well, I mean, no, it wasn't. No, they don't stripe them like,
But I mean, like
Grove Funeral Home.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, some of them around here kind of say that.
Well, it must be a tighter market down there, okay? Because see, what happens out here is the few funeral directors we have left, they go to the fair, they go to the parish picnic, they sprinkle some money around, buy a bunch of quilt raffle tickets and stuff like that, and then everybody that dies, they get the call.
Right? Exactly. Yep.
But my great uncle, my dad's uncle, my grandpa's baby brother was a grave digger. He was the grave digger in this part of the country for 40 years. I mean, the grave digger.
Well, imagine that title. Being
it's funny, and it wasn't the story I was going to tell, but remind me to close on getting the funeral complaint. But
okay.
My whole life, this great uncle of mine, he's the guy everybody would ask. When they hear your last name, they would say, are you related to Huey? Because he was the grave digger, and everybody knew him. And it's because he two things. He dug every grave, and two, he sprinkled all this money around to all these churches to make sure that he was the guy. So one day I was at my best friend's house growing up, Brian's house, and the next door neighbor, we got to talking about something, and the next door neighbor's dad's there, and he said, well, I got him a start, and this was an old German Catholic guy, pillar of the community. And I said, what do you mean? And I guess prior to this, when somebody in the parish would die, they would have to go out there, and parishioners or friends or whatever would get a jug and go out there and dig the hole the night before the funeral. You know what I mean? Like with shovels, hand dig it.
Oh boy, yeah.
Hand dig it. And this guy, when he rattled off 2 or 3 people, and this is in the mid 60s. He's telling me this in the 80s, but he was speaking of 20 years ago, which would have been the mid 60s, And it was like when Joe and Jim and Bob died, we had to dig 3 of them in January. You know what I mean? And somebody said there's got to be a better way. And my uncle was one of the. He was a operator, and he had a backhoe, and he was kind of trying to make a name for himself in the backhoe business. And they called him up and said, and of course, there's always a bar involved. They knew him from the bar. They just knew him from just around. And so they called him up and said, hey, can you come out here and dig his hole? And he showed up and dug those 2 or 3 holes. And next thing you know, word got out that when somebody died,
call Huey.
He called Huey. And before it was all said and done, it was a giant company. It still is a giant company. It's been bought out by other people, and they got into the vault bacon business, the big concrete burial vault.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A bunch of other stuff. But there was a time when he might be digging his company might be digging 6 or 8 graves the same day in different towns. You know what I mean?
What do you get for digging a grave?
Well, I don't
for
know.
just digging a hole. I
hope a place in heaven, because he died last couple of years ago.
I meant dollar wise.
I wouldn't know. I don't know.
Not eternal gift.
Hey, let me tell you. Do what?
Not what's your eternal gift. Like what kind of money you get?
Well, I think he got his gift here on Earth because he had a couple of 3 big farms besides the one he was born on, raised on. But he had 2 other big farms, and he had, of all things, he always had a big old Chevy 1-ton dually or something like it, because the company always had these beautiful. He always drove Chevys because his brother, my dad's other uncle, was a Chevy car salesman, so he always had gray Chevy trucks, like a stoic gray looking Chevys, But he had a fleet. But his personal car was always a Jaguar. And me and my brother was talking to him. I had the opportunity to buy his last Jaguar a couple of years ago when he passed, and I didn't do it. I've kicked myself 2 or 3 times. It was a mid '90s gold, like XJ6 with the tinted windows all tinted on it.
Oh boy, you look sweet. Look sweet in that car.
I don't know. They had a lot of electrical package problems. I think Jaguar did, and they were owned by Ford at the time. So as far as I was concerned, it was just an overpriced Ford. But some of those old timers just had flair, So I've been around grave diggers and treating death as just another part of life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one day I'm driving down this industrial boulevard, which don't mean anything to you, but in my town, and I'm a state trooper, and I've literally drove 45 miles up this highway for something, and then as soon as I get that done, they call me to drive 45 miles the opposite direction to go take care of something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I have got someplace to be, but it's not red lights and sirens someplace to be, but it's someplace to be nonetheless. So I'm driving down, and when I say driving down the street, it's 2 lanes in both directions with a turn lane in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a serious street, 45 mile an hour speed limit, but it's not like I'm driving down, curb and gutter Main Street or something. And here comes this long funeral procession in the opposite direction. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I start to slow down. You know how people slow down, stop, yield to funeral.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Okay. Out of respect. Yeah.
Out of respect. That's right. I have got 3 lanes. I've got 2 lanes of traffic and a turn lane in between them and me. And they called on the radio and asked me my ETA to this other deal. So I slowly went around the people that were stopped and kept going. Does that make sense? I kept
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
dude,
You had other
because
pressing stuff. Yes.
I got stuff to do, right?
You're on the clock.
Yes. And I get back to the office. I said, "Hey, were you driving down?" And I said, "Dude, I'm the only one working." You know I was. And what? And the captain says, "Well, so and so called in." And when I said so and so, he was a retiree. He was a retired trooper that was my very first lieutenant. Okay. And so he knew it was me. But when these guys retire, a lot of them go to work for the funeral home and drive, funeral processions and stuff like that at work. But he called out the troop and talked to the captain, wanted to tell the captain that I was disrespectful because I didn't yield to this funeral procession. And I'm like, dude, the guy's just as dead whether I stop or not. You know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you, but I'm here for the living, man. I'm here for the living, of all things, to get complained on.
Oh man. Yeah, look, you got a point. You got a point. I don't think the guy in the hearse didn't care one way or the other, did he?
Probably not, but I don't know. You don't know. I mean, maybe that's why sometimes I slip and fall and stuff. Maybe it's the ghost pushing me down or tripping me.
Yeah,
right? Some dead dude following me.
He attached himself to you when you didn't stop and said, "I'm just going to mess with this guy for the rest of his life."
But and this is really going to get deep, so I don't know if I need to go there, but I'm going to. Funerals are for the living, right? That's what they always tell
me. Oh yeah, definitely.
Funerals are for the living, right?
Definitely.
So my grandmother, my mother's mother, passed away, and she had one of those prepaid deals, right? And she'd made a big deal out of everybody knowing all her affairs were in order, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She had very limited requests, and this is a tough old woman, born in 1919. In 1925, when she was 6 years old, her family moved her. She was born in Mingo County, West Virginia, which is why I say West Virginia sometimes on my stuff, because I got it. They remember my people back there.
Yep.
But when 1925, they walked behind a team of mules from Mingo County, West Virginia to Sykeston, Missouri, to get out of the coal mines and go to picking cotton. So these people are tough. Her and her people are tough, right? Super tough. The only request she had was to be buried back in this little town in southeast Missouri, and she wanted a pink outfit. So
seems reasonable. Seems reasonable.
Passes away. Hey, she passes away. Me and my mom go down to this funeral home, and she's got this registered policy that when we hand it to him, he knows all about it. Does that make sense? So he brings out a 3-ring binder, and it's like, okay, well, her policy pays for this, but we have this page of that. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Your only 3 caskets on this are these 3, but we got 27 of them here, or vice versa.
If you pitch in a little bit more money.
Right. And we had decided, me and Mom, not to make any emotional decisions, right? We're going to stick with what she paid for. I think my big brother was with me too. It was me, my big brother, my mom. And hey, this is what we're getting, right? So one of the caskets was a pink one. So we picked a pink casket. And then me and my brother had went out to Dillard's and bought a pink ended up being like a satin, probably tube dress negligee type of deal. She was a little woman, 5'4", 90 pounds kind of deal. So anyhow, Mom picks out the stuff, and we stay right within the parameters where it's not costing anything. And then we were transported 150 miles, 160 miles back to her hometown, where her brother, she was real close with her brother, but she was in her 90s, late 80s. He was in his early 90s, so they got him essentially out of the nursing home to come to this funeral. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And we're out on this hillside. It's my brother, me and all my brothers there. And my big brother, I think, had started drinking. It's about a 150-mile trip. About 45 miles into it, he had already started drinking. He's riding in the pickup with me out of Crew Cab Chevy. He's riding my truck. So they were getting pretty loose. Does that make sense? Because we had to drive down here, and they was, huh?
Listen. I have the mental picture of what's going on.
And then I had my little brother was still married to his wife, and she was loony as a fruitcake, and she was in the truck with us too. So between my big brother drinking and my little brother's crazy soon to be ex-wife, it was just a wild ride. Okay. So we're on this hillside. When I say hillside, I mean it's old. I mean about one step below. Now we're in southeast Missouri, so it's flat as a pool table. So for years, to this day, all the cemeteries are on the high points or these bluffs. Some of them are overlooking the river, some of them just. So we're on this big old steep hillside overlooking 1 million acres of flat farm ground, but it's steep. And when we go to take her out of this, now this hearse is pointed downhill, and it'd be like being in San Francisco. Like you think, like you gotta almost get a winch to pull this casket out of this car. You know what I mean? Because we're on this hillside. So we get her out, we get her turned around, she didn't weigh nothing. We walk her over there and put her on her thing, and a lot of the older people were already sitting down. Almost everybody was already sitting down. Well, one of the guys in the front row was her brother, and he was obviously emotional, and he said, I had something to the effect, I haven't seen her in 20 years, 25 years, or how'd she look? Something because we had a little thing for her back in our town where she had lived for the last 40 years, 50 years, but these were her people back in her hometown. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and he didn't get out of the funeral home or the rest home.
They never got to go to the funeral home and see her. And I said, and he said, I'd sure like to see her, or I wish it was possible. And this funeral home guy, he was kind of taken, but he didn't know how to answer the question. You know what I mean? I'd like to see her. It was more of a rhetorical question. I'd like to see her. And what that meant was, I want to see her if that's okay. And the funeral home guy wasn't catching on. And my drunk big brother said, you want to see her? We can open this.
Oh, God. Okay.
The guy looked at me because he's looking at me because he drove this whole journey. He knows I'm the cop out of the group, right? So I'm going to make the adult decision and say, I don't think that's a good idea to open this casket on the side of the hill. So I said, yeah, you want to see her, EJ? We'll open her up. I looked at the dude and I said, how hard is it? And he goes, well, it's not hard at all. There's like a little hidden catch. And so we open this casket, and there's my grandma in a pink negligee. And all these, half a dozen 90-year-old people walk over and squeeze her hand and stuff like that. And we close her back up and bury her. So I don't know what the point of that story was, huh?
Pink negligee. I mean, negligee. Well, I think the point of that story is I'm going to be as we're performing our duties tomorrow, and maybe as I'm feeling a little sad, I'm going to think about your grandma in a pink negligee.
Well, you know what? Hey, go ahead. You're going to, yeah. Well, I've got. It's funny. Me and you didn't think about. We didn't know what we were going to talk about tonight. We segued into all this funeral stuff. Yeah. I heard a funeral story today that involves some of my family, and so we're going to tell it for next week's show. But I got one that since I'm on the Huey part and I'm on some of these people, and a lot of the affected people are passed on now, so it wouldn't bother me to tell the story that I'd heard. And so next week we'll have another funeral. We'll start off with a funeral story. Okay.
So I can hardly wait. I hope everybody will be looking forward to it after they hear this.
That's right.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.